It's hard to believe there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love to see that she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry.
Many of us as guitar players want to have a guitar to serve every single function of every single song. You want to have a Les Paul, a Strat, a Tele, a 335, all the different tones conceivably that were played on all the classic records. But in some cases, it's just not practical, either not affordable to buy all those guitars to have them in your arsenal, or to travel with that many guitars in order to get all those different sounds. Which brings me to the topic of today's video, is about having one guitar that can capture the essence of all those different instruments, but in a single instrument, in a single guitar, that can really not only give you the airiness of a Strat, but the thickness and girth of a PAF pickup, and even some modern pickup sounds beyond that. So today's subject is all about what I consider to be the most versatile guitar ever made, which is the PRS 513. Now, before we get into the video today, I just want to remind you that if you're not subscribed already, this is a great time to do it. And in fact, if you believe that you're already subscribed, I welcome you to double check that, because only about 20% of you that are watching our channel every month are actually subscribed to the channel. So if you could check that out, make sure that you're subscribed, you've hit the bell icon. That's just going to make sure that you stay up to date with all the great videos that we're coming out with every single week. So for the video today, it's not just a love letter to evangelize the 513, which is an incredibly versatile guitar, as you'll see. I actually want to prove it. So today we're going to use 4 different songs as sort of the vehicle to demonstrate how close the PRS 513 can get to some of the classic instruments. And today our exemplar instruments will be a Les Paul for the humbucking sounds and a Stratocaster for the single coil sounds. Now for the humbucker, I've identified 2 different songs that will demonstrate rhythm tones and will demonstrate lead tones. So for the rhythm tones, I have Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love, and for the lead tone, I have Revelation as it's performed by Robben Ford. For the single coil sounds, I have Red Hot Chili Peppers' Under the Bridge, and I have Mark Knopfler Through Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. Now, I'm going to be using the Strat and the Les Paul to perform those songs, and I'm also going to overdub the same part using the 513, and I'm going to show you how each of them sounds, so you can hear how it is on a Strat, that same take of whatever song it might be, whether it's Under the Bridge or Sultans of Swing, and I'm going to recreate that same part using the single coil sounds out of the 513 and replay it. Now you're going to get to hear these kind of toggled through back to back, so you can kind of get a sense of how they sound when they're kind of cross-faded into each other, and I'll also do a little bit of playing of them individually so you have a real clear sense of what they sound like, again, in isolation before we're kind of toggling them back and back. Equally with the Les Paul tones, when you're hearing me play A Whole Lotta Love or you're hearing me play Revelation, you're going to get to hear the Les Paul playing those songs, and then you're going to get to hear the 513 in the humbucker mode showing those exact same tones, and you're going to get to hear them again in isolation, and then we'll toggle back and forth between them so you can hear how well those humbucker sounds stack up against a real Les Paul versus the PRS 513. Now again, the whole intent today is to see, can one guitar really replace 2 classic guitars with very dissimilar pickup choices? And can these hybrid pickups that are inside the 513 really recreate this? That's what we're here to find out. And honestly, I don't really fully know how well they'll recreate it. I've only really tried this guitar on its own, not in comparison with a Strat or a Les Paul. So I've never really done the shootout in real time to really say. So as I go through each piece, I'll kind of synthesize what I'm hearing. And of course, I welcome you to comment and tell me what you're hearing on your end. So before we get into it, let's talk about the gear. So 513 PRS guitar. Now, it is a little different than most guitars that we know of. One thing that's very familiar, however, is there is a 5-way selector switch on the bottom here, which is just like what a normal Strat selector switch would be. Also, you have the secondary switch, which has 3 different positions in it. When it's all the way up, it's a single coil style sound. When it's moved to the second position, it's more like a classic humbucker, a little bit more clear. And then when it's on the back, it's more of a dirtier humbucker, a lot more compressed and maybe a little bit more modern sounding. Also, I should name that this guitar is no longer made to my knowledge, but there are two other guitars that very closely resemble what this sounds like and what this does, those two being the PRS 509 and also the PRS Studio guitars. Those are two different models that can very closely approximate this, and in some cases, some believe even improve upon this design, although I have to say this is my favorite of those models that I've played. Of course, you can still get this on Reverb and other used places to purchase the guitar secondhand. Also for the gear today, other than the 513, the Strat and the Les Paul, which you'll be hearing, I'm going to have an assortment of Vertex and other pedals that we're going to be using today. I'll name those as we go through each song. And for the amplifier, we're going to be using a Hot Rod DeVille ML for all of the amplifier sounds. That's going to be mic'd up underneath my house, which is a G1265 speaker with a Shure SM7B microphone on the speaker. You're also going to be hearing all of the delay and reverb tones coming from the Collider, which is a delay and reverb combination made by Source Audio. For all the examples today, we're going to have it on either a plate reverb or on a spring reverb, and the delay when it's used is going to be set to a short slapback analog delay sound. So let's first get into the humbucker sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a section, a rhythm section, of the song Whole Lotta Love by Led Zeppelin, of course recreating some of the iconic tones of Jimmy Page. I'm going to start first with the Les Paul, and you're going to hear me play that riff, you know, the kind of the classic riff that you hear in that song. And then I'm going to switch over to the PRS 513, and you're going to hear me play that same riff on the 513. And then I'm going to play them cross-faded together, so it's going to kind of weave in and out between the Les Paul and the 513, so you can kind of hear them in real time as it's switching back and forth. So for this song, you're going to hear the Les Paul and the 513 both running into a T-drive, one of our overdrive and distortion pedals, that's then hitting the front of the Fender Hot Rod DeVille ML. Now, I'll say I try to play this as closely as possible, and I'm by no means an expert guitar player or a session musician that can nail these, you know, and make them sound exactly the same way as the record. That's not really the purpose here. The purpose is this a passable humbucker sound that might be as different as picking up two different Les Pauls or a Les Paul and an SG, or two things that are reasonably sort of similar in terms of the sound and what they do, and can this 513 really nail the essence of that humbucking sound and kind of really pay homage to the classic Led Zeppelin tune, Whole Lotta Love. Let's check it out.
I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love.
So I think in both cases it sounded really great. I struggled a little bit on the timing here. A lot of this Led Zeppelin stuff you can't put a click track to because it kind of speeds up as it gets further along. So I was really trying to tune into the drummer and make sure that I was kind of following along at least close enough where you could understand what I was going for. And I felt like maybe the PRS sounded slightly more modern, a little clearer maybe in some ways, which is great in some cases, but maybe not as close to what Jimmy Page's Les Paul might have had. But I think overall a very passable sound. Like I don't feel like it was a compromise. I just feel like it was maybe a slight difference. Again, if you were to pick up a couple of different humbucking guitars that were all resembling a Les Paul, you might get a similar variation to what you heard here. Very, very great sounding. And of course, PRSs are built incredibly well. This is a guitar that I actually bought secondhand from another guitar player, and right out of the box was just absolutely perfect playing, even though it's, 15 or 20 years old. So all in all, I think a very close sound. I think it sounds slightly different. I don't think that we could say that they are exactly the same guitar. They aren't. Even the thickness of the body is pretty different. But I do think it is a very close to a kind of humbucker, kind of vintage style Les Paul solid body-ish sort of sound, and I think it very much is passable. But let's now go on to the next song, and in this case, I'm going to be playing some lead tones, and I'm going to be doing the song Revelation by Robben Ford. Well, I guess Robben Ford didn't write it. I think Russ Ferrante might have written that song. Correct me if I'm wrong on there if you know the origins of the song Revelation, but I'm going to do it as it's performed by Robben Ford. And this is kind of a tricky song. It's got a lot of really, important bends that need to be, perfectly in tune in order to really sell it. So I will do my best on that end to really sell the Robben Ford vibe to the degree it's possible by an amateur. But I think what you're going to hear is, some really great single note work. You're going to get to hear how the pickups really bloom. I'm going to be using for this my Ultraphonics overdrive to get all the overdrive tones so that you're going to get to hear that through the Hot Rod DeVille. That's going to be what's kind of driving the entire sound, and you're going to get to hear that in both ways. Again, the Les Paul first, then we'll transition over to the 513, and then you're going to get to hear them cross-faded into each other in real time. Let's hear how that sounds. That was a really challenging song for me as a player. I always feel like it's hard to keep all those bends perfectly in tune and really nail the timing and the feel of Robben Ford. So I apologize for those who have to suffer through this with me, but I do think in spite of the playing, we can really get a sense of how great I think both of the pickups really bloom the note. Of course, the Ultraphonics overdrive is designed to sound like Robben Ford style Dumble overdrive special, and we voiced that pedal against several authentic overdrive special amplifiers. And I think that it really does have the vibe. It has the feel. Of course, there are some differences, just like we heard with the Led Zeppelin example, but I do think that it is within sort of the standard deviation of what you would get if you picked up multiple different guitars that had different sort of PAF style pickups that were, all kind of based on a Les Paul. Even though this isn't explicitly based on a Les Paul with the PRS 513, it very much can capture that vibe. And I think that that was the important takeaway in sort of comparing the two different sounding guitars, the Les Paul versus the 513. But now I want to pivot and I want to go to Strats now. And we're going to be playing two different songs that are iconic Strat songs. One being, of course, Sultans of Swing, as we mentioned earlier, by Dire Straits with Mark Knopfler as the guitar player, and also John Frusciante as the guitar player with the Red Hot Chili Peppers with the song Under the Bridge. I want to start first with Sultans of Swing, and I'm going to bring out my Strat, and you're going to hear me again play a pass with the Strat, and then I'm going to replay that same exact part using the 513, using the single coil selection on this guitar. You're going to get to hear them separately, and then you're going to get to hear them back to back as they're sort of cross-faded in real time. Again, for this one, I'm going to be using, again, 513 and Strat. We still have the Fender Hot Rod DeVille ML. I'm going to be using a little bit of reverb from the Source Audio Collider, but no delay on this one. And I'm going to be using a Vertex compressor prototype in order to create some of those Mark Knopfler orange squeezer tones.
Then a crowd of young boys, they're fooling around in the corner. Drunk and dressed in their best brown baggies in their platform soul.
So it sounded great. I think that it was very Mark Knopfler-y. I don't exactly play like Mark Knopfler, but again, I try to do the very best interpretation for the purposes of the video so you can at least get a sense of what that might sound like through, again, me being the bass line to play both parts. I thought it sounded actually pretty authentic. I would say one thing that I would say about this particular guitar, the 513, in some of the combination positions, it maybe sounds a little heavier than a Strat would, where a Strat kind of gets a little more airy and maybe loses a little output in some of the in-between positions. These tend to get pretty thick. So I found that I kind of had to just go with the middle pickup on this in order to kind of get the airiness and chime that I needed to recreate the Knopfler sound. And maybe some of those 2 and 4 positions were a little thicker, but I still think it was very convincing, certainly Stratty. But just one thing that I noticed as I was kind of going between the Strat sound on an actual Strat and then kind of using the 513 to emulate the Strat. But nevertheless, great sound, certainly passable, and certainly very chimey and stratty, no matter which one you're choosing. But let's now go to some rhythm tones, and I want to use the song from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Under the Bridge, in order to orchestrate that. And John Frusciante's rhythm playing on this, in addition to the opening, which I'm not going to attempt to play, it's got a very Hendrixy sort of vibe, lots of double stops, and it's got like a really nice, bright, chimey Strat sound. And as opposed to kind of doing more of the single note kind of stuff that I was doing on the Mark Knopfler thing, this is going to be really indicative of kind of rhythm tones. So I'm going to set both guitars on their neck position, and you're going to get to hear the Strat into the same compressor that we used for the Mark Knopfler stuff, going into the Fender Hot Rod DeVille ML, and I'm going to keep on that same reverb sound, and then I'm going to switch over to the 513, so you're going to get to hear the Strat, the 513, and then you're going to get to hear them cross-faded into each other. So you're really going to get to hear exactly how they compare to each other in real time. So let's get to Under the Bridge. I'm going to play a little section of the rhythm guitar part, and we'll do this comparison. Let's see how it goes.
It's hard to believe there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love to see that she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. It's hard to believe there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love to see that she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. It's hard to believe there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe that I'm all alone. At least I have her love to see that she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry.
So I think overall here, this was probably, to me, much closer than the Mark Knopfler version. I would say here the single coil pickups are maybe a little thicker and a little more output than what you heard on my kind of 50 style Strat. Now again, this could be a function of just the difference between choosing a guitar with 50s pickups versus 60s pickups, where there maybe is some overwinding that goes on between 50s and 60s, but I would just name that as kind of a difference. Now it still sounded very chimey, very stratty. You still had plenty of jangle when you're going through all those double stops and kind of those little kind of hammer-ons and things like that. It still was very much in the Strat vibe, but I would just name that there was those slight differences that I noticed between kind of comparing guitar to guitar, but still absolutely awesome. And I think that that's the thing that I would say, just kind of doing this exploration with you in real time about this guitar. What I think it does really well is capture the essence of a Les Paul or a Strat, whether we're talking about a neck pickup, a middle pickup, or a bridge. It can get incredibly close and very much has the essence of what we consider to be the gold standards of those pickups. Now, does it sound exactly like a Strat? No. Does it sound exactly like a Les Paul? No. But I don't think any guitar will do that, short of you bringing a Les Paul and a Strat to a gig. But I would say if there's one guitar that I would take to a gig, or if you're just looking to buy a high-end guitar and you can invest in every single type of guitar, and you want something that's going to really be a workhorse, I think that this is the guitar, whether it be the 513, which is the one I'm playing, or some of the newer versions like the 509 or the Studio. These are absolute workhorses. They're built incredibly well, and off the shelf, they are some of the best playing guitars out there. That's not just purported by me, but it's pretty much reported by almost every gigging musician out there about the consistency in sound, feel, and build quality of a PRS guitar. So I'm really blown away by this. It's an absolute keeper for me and a new guitar to me, and I really got it because I wanted to see how versatile these guitars actually were. And if I'm going out to a blues jam or I'm playing a top 40 gig and I can't take all these guitars with me, I just want to take a guitar, some pedals, and an amp. This has clearly demonstrated to me that it can do it. It's got the sounds, it's got the feel, it plays great, and I can really get and call up whatever I need with just one guitar, a 5-way pickup selector, and then a selection in the back to determine whether I want single coil, whether I want kind of a clear PAF style humbucker, or more of a modern kind of heavier humbucker. This will really do it all. So I hope you dug this video where we're comparing some of the classic guitars with the Strat and Les Paul versus the 513 to see how close that they can really come when playing some classic songs, whether those songs be from Led Zeppelin, Dire Straits, Red Hot Chili Peppers, or Robin Ford. I think we really put it through the paces. We tried to give an accurate representation. Again, I did my best as a guitar player to kind of recreate these. In a lot of cases, I'm just kind of running through these songs quickly, maybe the night before, and then that morning I'm just going and trying to get it in as few takes as possible. So I appreciate you suffering through with me, but I think even in spite of the playing, it gives us a good baseline to really see what this thing can do and how impressive of a guitar it is. And again, if versatility is what you need and you can't afford or can't travel with a big arsenal of guitars, I think the 513 or the newer 509 or PRS Studio are definitely amazing guitars, and I highly recommend them. And if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you like, you subscribe, leave us a comment, tell me what the best playing example maybe is that I did, or you can make fun of my worst playing example, whatever sort of piques your interest. And in spite of that, if you want to support us, the best way to do that is head over to vertexeffects.com. You can buy one of the pedals that we used today to demonstrate some of the different tones capable from the 513, the Les Paul, and the Strat. We use pedals like the Ultraphonics, the T-Drive, and also we're going to have a compressor coming out soon, which we used to demonstrate today on some of the different sounds from Mark Knopfler and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. And if you wanted to get some of the cables that we used to connect everything today, whether it be the pedals or to the amplifier, all those are available over at therigdr.com or over at our friends at Sweetwater. And an easy free way to stay in touch with us and to get longer form content that's just along the lines that you heard today is over at our podcast called The Chairman of the Boards, where I get together with Grant from Goodwood Audio and Brian from O'Million Audio, and we have a roundtable discussion every week about pedal boards, gear, and tone, and that's available on all the common podcatchers, whether it be Apple, Spotify, etc. You can find it anywhere that podcasts are found. So thank you so much for watching this video and for exploring with me the versatility of the PRS 513. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, I'm Mason Marangella, aka The Rig Doctor. We'll see you later.
It's hard to believe